Karen Reed's first jury was rigged, and Turtleboy's jury could be too. I'll explain everything. And hey, while we're making bold claims, let's toss out a few more. I believe Hank Brennan lost Karen Reed's second trial before opening statements. And I think Chris Maddy is walking into the exact same trap by representing the House defendants. Before anybody starts rage typing in the comments, hear me out. This isn't a criticism of either attorney's intelligence. They're both regarded as accomplished trial lawyers. The problem is that every lawyer has a comfort zone, a wheelhouse, a bailiwick. Hank Brennan has spent years in his role of criminal defense. Chris Maddy has spent years representing institutions, universities, hospitals, the people that society generally label as the good guys. That's what each lawyer is used to, and that's where they've honed their instincts. Believe it or not, Adam Lunchbox Lally realized something that rarely gets mentioned. He understood the power and the art of shaping a jury. Not voir dire or the peremptory challenges, the jury itself. And I think that's why Karen Reed's first trial looked the way that it did, and why it ultimately resulted in the mistrial. Oh my gosh, I completely forgot to do the introduction again. Hi, I'm Grace. Welcome to Dreamfeed Media. This is a channel where I mostly explore cases involving injustice in a calm way. Think of it as law zen. Most recently, we've been discussing topics like the YouTuber who is actively trying to steal the $1 million estate of her deceased subscriber, or, in today's topic of discussion, exposing how the Commonwealth of Massachusetts attempts to rig the juries of cases in Norfolk County. I'm glad that you're here, and I hope that you'll feel comfortable enough to like, subscribe, and stick around for a while. Have you ever wondered why Adam Lally called witness after witness after witness? More than 60 people. A few were critical, others seemed barely tangentially connected. Some told us things that we genuinely needed to know, while others repeated information we'd already heard again and again until we were all muttering, shoveling the apron, and high-top tables in our sleep, almost like the guy from that old Dunkin' Donuts commercial. I used to joke that Adam Lally's strategy was coercive control through hypnosis. Keep repeating the same story until it becomes a permanent memory for everyone in the room. Repetition mattered, but I don't think that it was the deciding factor. I think his real strategy was time. More specifically, it was Adam Lally's influence over the sheer length of the trial. Most people think jury selection starts with voir dire. I think that jury selection begins the moment somebody estimates how long the trial will last. Let's talk about why. Every trial lawyer has an ideal juror, not someone who's already decided the case or someone who is willing to disregard the law. The ideal juror is someone whose life experiences make the lawyer's version of events feel more believable. The prosecution generally prefers jurors who trust institutions, people with limited first-hand experience in the legal system, people who believe that police officers usually tell the truth and prosecutors generally bring the right cases, those who value order, rules, and accountability, people who are set in their ways and who haven't really had their core ideals challenged. The defense generally prefers a different set of traits. People who understand that accusations are not evidence. People willing to question authority. People who can recognize that institutions sometimes fail, not because these jurors are anti police or conspiracy theorists, but because their life experiences have taught them that governments, corporations, schools, and police departments are run by human beings, and human beings are somewhat notorious for making mistakes. Neither the prosecution nor the defense is looking for biased jurors. They're looking for different starting points and different frames of mind. Now, let's say the quiet part out loud. Who can actually afford to serve? We're told Americans are entitled to a jury of our peers. They say jury service is both a duty and a right. But the truth is, serving on a jury could also be viewed as a luxury or a privilege. In Massachusetts, jurors' employers generally pay regular wages for the first 3 days of jury service, and after that, qualifying jurors receive $50 a day from the Commonwealth. Think about that, $250 a week in Massachusetts. The median rent in Norfolk County hovers around $3,100 per month, with overall average rents typically ranging between $2,400 and $2,970, depending on the source and the location. Imagine that you're self employed, a hairstylist, a realtor, a contractor, maybe a small business owner. Or perhaps you're a single parent or a caregiver, an hourly employee trying to make rent. Could you disappear from work for 9 weeks? Could you live off of $1,000 a month? Most people I know sure couldn't. Not because they don't care or because they're wanting to dodge their civic duty, but because they literally can't afford to. In my experience, the court system tends to be fairly accommodating about excusing potential jurors for reasons like childcare and finances. After all, a financially anxious juror or a resentful juror isn't going to be beneficial to either side. Now ask yourself another question. Who can afford to participate as a juror in a lengthy trial? Who is more likely to have both an abundance of time and financial stability? Retirees, people with generous employers, people living comfortably on another household income, people with significant savings, people whose schedules are unusually flexible. I'm not trying to say that retirees always side with the prosecution or that older jurors can't be fair. I'm actually saying something more simple. Long trials create an economic filter. Before the lawyers ask their first voir dire question, before the first challenge for cause or the first peremptory strike, economics have already started selecting the jury. Voir dire can only choose from the people still standing in the room. That changes everything because people who can absorb a 2-month trial often share demographics beyond financial stability. Many have spent their lives trusting institutions, voting, volunteering, serving on committees, believing in civic responsibility. And those are wonderful qualities. They're also the same qualities that the prosecution generally hopes to find. So, Adam Lally didn't have to rig the jury in the criminal sense. He didn't have to bribe or threaten anyone. He didn't have to secretly communicate with jurors using code phrases like, what if any? If a trial becomes so long that entire segments of demographics can't realistically afford to serve, the jury pool changes before voir dire even begins. Legally, quietly, and almost invisibly. Think back to Karen Reed's second trial. Hank Brennan arrived on the scene, and he was probably pretty confident. He streamlined the trial significantly, eliminating repetition and non-essentials. Geez, he even chopped out some of the fairly important players like Higgins and Proctor. With a predicted shorter timeline, more jurors could potentially participate. The jury for Karen's second trial appeared to skew younger than the first, and it seemed like there was more cultural diversity. From Hank's traditional role as a defense attorney, and from that perspective, I sometimes wonder if he went home the day that jury selection ended, feeling like he had aced the assignment and helped secure a dream jury. Except, whoops, it's almost as if he forgot he was picking for the prosecution. This has been on my mind a lot lately because of something that Aidan Carney recently said about his own upcoming trial and his potential strategy. He's talked about wanting jurors to watch entire live streams instead of those carefully edited clips allegedly provided by the Unclean Underpants Brigade. And honestly, I understand exactly why. I mean, context matters. If a 30-second clip creates a false impression, then the instinct is to show the whole 3-hour stream. And likewise, if one witness only tells part of the story, the natural response is to call another witness and another. If your goal is to educate the jury, more context sounds like a great idea. But here's the question that keeps nagging at me. If every additional witness adds another day to trial, who can still afford to be sitting in that jury box by week 8? That's the trade off. Every decision makes sense by itself in isolation. Show more context, call one more witness, fill one more gap until every gap feels closed. It's ideal on paper, but problematic in practice. Together, those perfectly reasonable decisions can quietly reshape the jury, not through misconduct or manipulation, but via economics. Ironically, the strategy designed to give jurors the fullest picture may also make the jury least representative of the community. And by extension, we risk losing more of the everyman candidates and creating a jury that looked more like Karen Reed's first trial. Boomer engineers who treated evidence as a personal math challenge rather than accepting ARCA's findings. Or that first foreman, Ryan Piotrowski, was it? The former police officer who had been the victim of an on duty motor vehicle strike that ended his career? How in the world did that guy slip past the goalie? And speaking of slipping by, it still gets my goats that Juror Ronnie wasn't even a Norfolk County resident when he served on Karen's jury. Remember? He'd forgotten to update his address on his driver's license when he had moved away the year before. 5 days sorting through 400 plus candidates, and this was the cream of the crop? No wonder juror Victoria George joined the defense team for the retrial. I digress. I think that Aidan has a genuine tightrope to walk. He'll need to teach without overwhelming and educate without turning a 4-week trial into an 8-week marathon. Because I don't think that jurors need more information. I think they need better information. Fortunately, Aidan already understands the most important part. He realizes that jurors are students. And I love that mindset because teachers know something that attorneys sometimes forget. People don't remember everything that you tell them. They remember what you help them understand. And educating is only one part of teaching. I used to joke that people often overlooked and or underestimated the elements of showmanship and prop comedy. I hope the defense will lean into Aidan's teaching skills. I hope they'll use meaningful analogies and maybe table any food metaphors. Need I remind you about Jessica Hyde's all-you-can-eat buffet example that had everyone distracted and daydreaming about lunch? I hope they'll use visuals and examples that people recognize and connect with, and that they won't assume jurors know what a rolling rally is or why petitioning the government matters. I hope they meet them where they are, and perhaps most importantly, I hope that the defense makes it feel safe to question authority without fear of repercussions. Because that's really what this case is asking them to do. It's the heart of the matter. How much can the government restrict citizens' freedom of speech? Statistically, Aiden's jury is likely to end up with at least a few good little doobies like me on the jury, ones that are obedient and serious, perhaps a little too idealistic, some who sincerely believe and represent the court that they can be unbiased, yet still slightly tainted by the idea that if a case got all the way to trial, surely it must have some merit. Most jurors don't distrust the justice system because they haven't had a reason to question it. For all practical purposes, their experience with the legal system is contained to what they learned in 10th grade civics class: three branches of the government, a system of checks and balances, an appeal process as a safety net in case the jury gets it wrong. They're not ignorant or unintelligent, they're human. The average juror has not spent the last several years reading court filings, disciplinary records, audits, and transcripts the way that many of us have. And knowledge can be a double edged sword. The informed ones are often the first to get booted from the jury pool. Not disqualified for their own legal transgressions or dismissed for projecting resentment, each seated juror inherently has at least a touch of the compliant, people pleaser personality. I mean, look at juror Ronnie from trial one. He was so concerned about getting in trouble for not changing his address that he basically lied by omission and ultimately received a spot on the jury. Do you know how easy it is to prevent this? He could have taken that notice, called the number on the website, explained the situation, and he could have easily been excused. No punishments, no big deal. They just would have transferred his name to the jury list for his new address. But he was a people pleaser, and they can be trouble. They want to uphold their sworn duty. They want to honor their responsibility to their community. If the defense wants the jury to recognize institutional failure, they first have to make institutional skepticism feel safe. The prosecution will try to make skepticism seem radical and conspiratorial. The defense will need to present skepticism as healthy and responsible. Some jurors, the ones like Ronnie, and me, to be honest, might even need to hear actual permission to question authority without feeling like they're somehow betraying their community. But back to the jury rigging via time management. I have started to wonder how pervasive this strategy is. And I hope that we get to ask Adam Deitch about this because, based on some cursory research, it seems like Norfolk County trials take exponentially longer than trials for similar charges in other counties. Examples that I've found of other recent vehicular manslaughter, homicide, OUI, leaving the scene type cases in different Massachusetts counties have taken under 2 weeks or 10 workdays total from the jury selection to the verdict. The Berkshire County DA describes Deborah Millesi's 2022 proceeding as a 5-day jury trial. Also in 2022, Dylan Etheridge was convicted by a Suffolk Superior Court. Jury selection began on November 28th, and a verdict was entered on December 8th. Grand total, 9 workdays. In 2024, Christina Blackmore was convicted by a Plymouth Superior Court. Jury selection took 1 day, and then 4 days were spent presenting evidence and testimony, followed by 2.5 days of deliberation. Grand total here, 7.5 workdays. An ultra-recent Worcester County case of Stephen Biondo reports that jury selection occurred on Tuesday, May 26th of this year, and the verdict was reported on Friday, May 29th, for a grand total of 4 days. In Karen Reed's first trial, jury selection took 5 days. Presentation of evidence and testimony took 31 days. And then the jury deliberated for 5 days for a grand total of 41 workdays. For Karen Reed's second trial, Jury selection took 10 days. The evidence and testimony lasted 33 days, and then the jury deliberated for 4 days. Grand total workdays, 47. Remember how Judge Cannoni was constantly cutting off the defense and minimizing their opportunity to do their jobs, claiming that she wanted to be respectful of the jury's time? Remember the way that she'd put on that saccharine voice when the jury would re enter the room, apologizing for inconveniencing them with the sidebars that she herself practically forced the defense to request? Yet, how many days started late and ended early at her discretion? There were surprise days off, long weekends, and her famous "off days." How can you claim to not want a spectacle yet drag out a trial to the length of a Little League season or a space mission? Some might argue that Karen Reed's case was complex, and that's what justified the length. But I would reply that the 2017 Bristol County trial of Michelle Carter was somewhat complex too, and it was also pretty abstract. Michelle Carter was the teen found guilty of manslaughter for provoking her boyfriend via text messages into self deletion. Her trial had 6 days of testimony and evidence, followed by 3 days of deliberation. Granted, it was a bench trial, but still, it took a grand total of 9 work days from the rooter to the tutor. Norfolk County set aside 3 weeks, 15 work days, for Brian Walsh's case. You know, the one where he Googled, and by the way, these are the tame Google searches, at 5:47 a.m., 10 ways to dispose of a body if you really need to. 6:25 a.m., how long for someone to be missing to inherit? 6:34 a.m., can you throw away body parts? 9:34 a.m., how long does DNA last? 9:59 a.m., can identification be made on partial remains? 11:44 a.m., how to clean blood from a wooden floor? 1:21 p.m., is it better to throw crime scene clothes away or wash them? And then at 1:14 p.m., can you identify a body with broken teeth? And remember, these Google searches took place the day after his wife was last seen alive and the day before anyone realized she was missing. 3 freaking weeks set aside for that? Look, I know that this is a hot button issue right now, but my own county recently hosted the trial for Carmelo Anthony. And I've been around Judge Roach for the last 15 or 20 years. I've been a juror in his courtroom. I've been an observer there for one of our foster kids. He's even presided over some of my friends' divorces, and that man means business. He actually threatened to kick me out of his courtroom once for sneezing, and I'm not exactly a dramatic sneezer. I'm guessing he probably misinterpreted either the sound or my body language as talking. My point is, Judge Roach runs a tight ship. Jury selection for Carmelo Anthony's case took place Monday, June 1st, with a starting pool of 600 jurors. By Wednesday, 18 jurors were secured, and opening statements started Thursday morning. The state presented 21 witnesses offering testimony and evidence on Thursday and Friday, and then the prosecution rested on Saturday. The defense presented a dozen or so witnesses between Saturday and Monday, and then they rested. Closing arguments, deliberation, verdict, and sentencing all occurred on Tuesday. Grand total, 8 workdays. Every minute counts. Judge Roach's courtroom is run with military precision, and his courtroom hours frequently run from 7:30 in the morning all the way until 6 p.m., and that includes for jurors. With the Carmelo trial being so controversial and the potential for conflict and violence, plus the bulk of the witnesses being minors, it didn't surprise me at all that Judge Roach had an iron grip on the media, and a cannonball run paced schedule laid out. So, what in the world is going on in Norfolk County? Do any other counties in Massachusetts have these marathon trials? Are any of the other counties using these quote unquote specially appointed prosecutors and pricey snake oil salesman expert witnesses? Something is going on in Norfolk County. Jury rigging is just the tip of the iceberg, I think. Remember how Judge Cannoni bullied trial participants with threats of turning off the air conditioner? That feels closer to the statute describing witness intimidation than anything Aiden has done. What's next? Will they threaten to withhold the heat during Aiden's December trial? In my opinion, if Aiden's charges were dismissed right now, most people would probably forget about the whole thing even before the DA election in November. Out of sight, out of mind. How many absolutely bonkers things occurred during Karen Reed's trials that we've already memory holed? I had forgotten about the juror from trial 1 joining the defense team for trial 2 until I checked my notes to create this video. By digging in and doubling down like some kind of origami yoga practitioners, twist and fold, twist and fold. The Commonwealth is prolonging their negative publicity. They're stoking the flames. Their transgressions will be memorialized on YouTube presentations and the internet for the rest of time. It's the worst PR campaign in history. But go ahead. Keep showing us your dirty dealings. Keep giving us opportunities to evaluate and document your biased decisions. How doth the jury rig within the lines? Let us count the ways. Whether you agree with me or not, I hope the next time that you watch a trial, you'll pay attention to something besides the testimony. Observe the witness list. Notice the projected trial length. If you're there in person, monitor the hardship excuses. Observe who disappears from the jury pool before voir dire ever begins, and then observe who remains. Because I suspect that jury selection starts much earlier than most of us have been taught. Listen, Turtle, don't let them shape your jury to their advantage. A long trial can be a Trojan horse, so stay alert. Find the balance. You've got this. And until the next one, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of our community. I love you.